This is my audience. According to the Stuttering Foundation, approximately 1% of the world stutters. Now, that may seem like a very small number, but 1% actually roughly equates to 70 million people. So it's likely that at some point in your life, you will run into someone who stutters. So it's beneficial for us to learn more about stuttering so that we can respectfully and effectively communicate with those that stutter. In preparation for today's speech, I have done a lot of scholarly research and looked at several reputable sources such as the Stanford Children's Hospital as well as the U.S. Department of Health. Today I will be going over the three types of stuttering, which are developmental stuttering, neurogenic stuttering, and finally, of course, psychogenic stuttering. So let's move on to the first type of stuttering, which is developmental stuttering. Developmental stuttering, according to the Stanford Children's Hospital, is, quote, the most common type of stuttering, end quote. It typically affects young children ages 2 to 5 who are learning how to speak. According to research done by the Oxford University, it's been found that around 5% of children actually struggle with developmental stuttering. It can usually be caused by two main reasons. The first is simply language development. As they try to learn how to speak, their language skills aren't developed enough for them to exactly express what they want to say. And the other cause can be genetics. It can be caused by 4 particular genes that when mutated can actually cause stuttering. Typically, developmental stuttering will go away on its own, with only about 1% of adults actually struggling with developmental stuttering. Now let's move on to our second type of stuttering, which is neurogenic stuttering. Neurogenic stuttering has to do with damage to the nervous system. It can be caused by things such as injury to the head or brain cancer or strokes, and other things, of course. It's typically a little bit different than developmental stuttering in that it can have different symptoms. So developmental stuttering, for example, only has to do with the beginning of a word. However, neurogenic stuttering can affect any part of the word. And finally, the most at-risk population for neurogenic stuttering is elderly people, because they're the ones most at risk of getting into injuries that could cause neurogenic stuttering, such as strokes, brain cancer, etc. Now let's move on to our third type of stuttering, which is psychogenic stuttering. Psychogenic stuttering is by far the most rare and the most mysterious type of stuttering. It is caused by mental illness or emotional trauma. It is typically characterized by abrupt inception or struggling either with the beginning of a word or stressed parts of the word. It is one of the most mysterious kinds. So it was actually once believed that psychogenic stuttering was the only type of stuttering, and that all stuttering was caused by emotional trauma. We know obviously today that is not true. Now that we've gone over all three types of stuttering, let's take a minute to review. So there are 3 main types of stuttering. The first is developmental stuttering, which has to do with language development in children. Then there's neurogenic stuttering, which has to do with damage to the nervous system. And finally, there's psychogenic stuttering, which has to do with either mental illness or emotional trauma. Now, according to the National Institute of Deafness and Other Communication Disorders, it has been found that there are around 3 million Americans who actually stutter. So again, like we said in the beginning, it's likely that you'll run into someone who stutters at some point in your life. And so I hope today's information was helpful. in being more respectful and effective with communication. For more information, you can check out these sites here. I also have this flyer from the Stuttering Foundation that gives 6 tips on how to converse effectively and respectfully with someone who has a stutter. So for those of you watching online, I will be able to email that to you guys. And then, yeah, thank you so much for your time.